So picture this for a second. You were at a formal wedding, right?
Okay, I'm there.
The dinner plates had just been cleared away, the lights dim down just a fraction, and the music starts.
Right, the usual transition to the party phase.
Exactly. But instead of that usual awkward scenario, you know, the one where guests sort of hesitantly shuffle toward the center of the room while some 20-year-old pop song plays?
Oh, waiting for the open bar to finally kick in so they have an excuse to be out there.
Yes, exactly. But instead of that, something entirely different happens. Suddenly, 80 people in suits and formal gowns form these two massive lines facing each other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they link arms, and they essentially just start sprinting down the center of the floor. Welcome to the 2026 wedding season.
It is such a striking visual, honestly, and it really represents this profound departure from the rigid, highly manufactured party rituals that we've grown so accustomed to over the last decade.
It totally does. And that is exactly what we are taking a deep dive into today. We're looking at this explosive cultural resurgence that is just completely rewriting the modern wedding playbook.
It really is a massive shift.
It is. We are talking about the massive trend of fiddling and Ceilidh dancing, which, by the way, for you listening, is spelled Ceilidh, but it's pronounced Ceilidh. And we're looking at this specifically within Scottish-Canadian weddings.
Right, and the numbers backing this up are fascinating.
Oh, they are wild. When you look at the trend data we are pulling from wedding planning platforms like Weddizer, along with these really in-depth guides into heritage celebrations, you realize this is far beyond just a niche aesthetic.
Yeah, it's not just a cute theme for a weekend.
Exactly. So today we're going to unpack how these centuries-old Scottish traditions are suddenly the absolute hottest ticket in 2026. Like how they are completely restructuring how we prioritize community, interactive entertainment, and cultural storytelling.
And we really need to examine the underlying mechanics of that shift, I think. Because we are not just going to catalog what these traditional dances are, we really want to explore why they represent such a crucial evolution in family identity today.
Right. Like what is actually driving a young couple in 2026 to demand a frantic, sweaty folk dance instead of, a curated, picture-perfect reception?
Well, it points to a massive psychological shift.
Yeah.
From passive consumption, just sitting and watching, to active, really immersive participation.
Okay, so let's unpack this. If the Ceilidh is the thing that forces people out of their chairs, we first need to understand the engine that drives that energy, right?
Absolutely, the soundtrack to the whole thing.
Right. Before anyone even steps onto the dance floor, we have to talk about the instrument serving as the literal heartbeat of these events, which is the fiddle.
The fiddle is so central to all of this.
It is. And the historical journey of this music is incredible. I mean, it originated in the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, serving as the absolute staple of community gatherings there. And then, when Scottish immigrants crossed the Atlantic to Canada, settling heavily in places like Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Ontario, they didn't just pack clothes and tools. They packed this music.
And it is so essential to understand the environment those immigrants were stepping into when they arrived.
Oh, for sure. Brutal conditions.
Right. They were arriving in a vast, geographically isolated, and often just brutally cold new world. So in that context, what's fascinating here is that the fiddle wasn't some luxury entertainment item.
It wasn't just a fun hobby.
Exactly. It was a fundamental survival tool. I mean, through the long, harsh Canadian winters, gathering in a small kitchen to hear the fiddle play was literally how they maintained their community spirit and, frankly, their sanity.
Wow, yeah. And I kind of look at the traditional Scottish fiddle as the ultimate musical multi-tool for a modern event planner.
Oh, totally. That's a great way to phrase it.
Thanks. But to understand why it works so well, you have to look at how it differs from, like, a standard violin. Because physically, I mean, it is the exact same wooden box.
Same string, same body, yeah.
Right. But a classical violin is usually associated with a very rigid, formal environment. It practically demands silence from the audience. You sit and you listen.
You definitely don't yell and stomp your feet at a symphony.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the fiddle, on the other hand, it demands stomping feet. And because of the acoustic nature of the instrument and the really aggressive rhythmic bowing techniques these players use, it can manipulate the energy of a room entirely on its own.
And that versatility is just key to this whole 2026 trend. You can have a single fiddler playing a slow, haunting air that sounds perfectly elegant and sophisticated during a ceremony procession.
Which is what couples want for the ceremony, right? that elegance.
Exactly. But then 2 hours later, that exact same instrument transitions to playing reels, jigs, and strathspeys.
And those are the fast ones.
Right, these highly rhythmic, bouncy, distinctly Scottish tunes. And suddenly, that same instrument is driving a room of 200 people into an absolute frenzy.
So the fiddle basically acts as this vehicle for cultural preservation.
Hmm.
But because it was passed down and played in these dynamic, rowdy settings, like kitchen parties and local halls, it didn't just stay frozen in a museum.
No, it adapted, it interacted with the new world.
Right. So what we are hearing today is this distinct subgenre that carries the DNA of the Scottish Highlands, but it pulses with a uniquely Canadian energy.
Precisely. Which brings us to the physical manifestation of that energy. Because the music is the cue, right? But the Ceilidh is the mechanism that translates that sound into collective action.
Okay, let's get into the Ceilidh, because this is where the magic really happens.
It is. Now, our sources define a Ceilidh traditionally as a social gathering featuring storytelling, music, and group dancing. But the defining characteristic, the rule that alters the entire psychological landscape of the room, is that a Ceilidh is strictly not a spectator event.
It is designed for everyone, regardless of age or experience. But I have to say, if you are listening to this right now and thinking, there is absolutely no way my introverted family is doing this.
Which is a totally fair reaction, by the way.
Oh, completely fair. Because we have to look at why we generally hate dancing at weddings in the first place. I mean, modern weddings struggle to get guests to dance to basic pop songs they have known their whole lives.
Oh, the dance floor avoidance is real.
It is. Isn't adding structured, complex Scottish choreography a recipe for a totally empty floor?
Yeah.
Because normally we avoid the floor because it requires us to invent our own performance.
Right. The pressure's entirely on you.
Exactly. You get out there, you don't know what to do with your hands, and you feel like the entire room is silently judging your lack of rhythm.
That is the ultimate modern dance floor anxiety. You are just an isolated individual trying to look cool. But the Ceilidh structure introduces a secret weapon to combat this.
The dance caller.
The dance caller. This is a professional who gets on a microphone and actively guides the crowd through the physical steps in real time. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it completely changes the game.
So what you're saying is the structure actually acts as a psychological safety net. By telling me exactly where to step, who to spin, and where to look, the caller basically removes the burden of individual performance. Like if I bump into someone or mess up the steps, it is not because I lack rhythm. It is just part of the chaotic game the caller set up.
You have completely shifted the objective. The goal is no longer look good while dancing. The goal is follow the caller's instructions so the formation doesn't collapse.
Right, so the pressure is off.
Entirely off. You are cooperating with the 80-year-old grandmother to your left and the 8-year-old nephew to your right.
Yeah.
It naturally pulls in the guests who usually hide at their tables.
It turns a performance into a massive cooperative game. And that chaos is meticulously designed. So let's break down the actual anatomy of these dances.
Yes, because the caller is asking the guest to do some very specific, highly interactive movements here.
Exactly. And the choreography is entirely built around maximizing social contact. Take the gay Gordons, for example, which the guides mention as a staple.
Oh, that is almost universally used as the icebreaker early in the evening.
Right, because it's essentially a guided rhythmic walk. Couples march forward, turn around, march back, and do a simple twirl.
Very low stakes.
Super low stakes.
Yeah.
It gets everyone out of their chairs and breaks that physical touch barrier without requiring any real athletic ability. But then you ramp up the complexity with something like the Dashing White Sergeant.
And that is where the pacing really accelerates.
Oh, yeah.
The Dashing White Sergeant organizes the room into these circles of 6 people. And the mechanics of the dance force you to weave through each other, constantly switching partners.
Right.
In the span of 30 seconds, you are forced to make eye contact and physically interact with 5 different people, many of whom you probably didn't even know before the music started.
Which is brilliant for forcing 2 sides of a family to actually mingle. And then we reach the absolute peak of this controlled chaos, which is a dance called Strip the Willow.
Oh, Strip the Willow, it's legendary.
It really is. To pull this off, you form 2 incredibly long lines facing each other. The couple at the top of the line links arms, spins in the middle, and then separates to link arms with the people standing on the sides.
And they continuously spin their way all the way down to the bottom of the line.
Right. And by the time the music speeds up, it relies entirely on momentum. Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Yeah.
Logistically, how do you pace this? Because it is basically a socially acceptable mosh pit for people in formal wear. How does a family survive it?
The mosh pit analogy is actually quite accurate regarding the physical forces at play there. I mean, when the fiddle tempo peaks, you are literally relying on centrifugal force to keep you upright as you spin from person to person.
That sounds exhausting, but amazing.
It is. It requires a tremendous amount of trust and a complete willingness to just let go of perfection. I mean, people are inevitably going to turn the wrong way or miss an arm length.
Oh, we're sure.
But that is exactly where the nonstop laughter comes from. It is a shared, joyful exhaustion.
There's another dance I want to look at, though, because the mechanics here offer something a bit deeper than just physical exhaustion. The Canadian barn dance.
Ah, yes. I love this one.
When you examine the actual choreography of this specific dance, you realize it is not just a set of random steps. It is a physical metaphor for the Scottish-Canadian immigrant experience.
That is a very astute way to view it. How do you see the choreography reflecting that history exactly?
Well, you have the foundational elements, like the upright posture, the specific marching rhythm, that are deeply rooted in the old world Scottish traditions, right?
The classical foundation.
Right. But the Canadian barn dance introduces localized New World adaptations, specifically the way partners progress around the room and swamp. It mimics the social dynamics of the rural Canadian farming communities where these immigrants settled.
Where relying on your neighbors was basically a matter of survival.
Exactly. So when a modern family dances this in 2026, they are quite literally acting out the historical blending of their ancestral roots with their Canadian environment.
Wow. The dance floor just transforms into a living, breathing historical document. But crucially, as the 2026 data shows, couples are not treating this like a rigid museum exhibit.
No, definitely not.
They are actively integrating these centuries-old steps with highly customized modern sensibilities.
Which brings us to this concept of hybrid heritage, because these steps might be centuries old, but the way couples are applying them is decidedly modern. For instance, the music itself is evolving into fusion music.
Yes, the fusion aspect is huge right now.
We aren't just talking about a lone acoustic fiddle in the corner anymore. You are seeing bands blend traditional fiddle techniques with Celtic rock, pop, and country.
Yeah.
Just imagine the driving beat of a modern drum kit and an electric bass laying the foundation for a furious, lightning-fast fiddle solo.
It creates a soundscape that honors the tradition while appealing directly to modern auditory expectations. It's brilliant. And this hybridization extends to the very structure of the evening itself, resulting in the rise of the hybrid reception.
I love this concept. So what does this all mean in practice? I call this the wedding mullet.
The wedding mullet, I love that.
Right. You have tradition in the front and the club in the back.
That is exactly what it is.
Mechanically, you structure the evening so the traditional Ceilidh dancing happens early in the night. This is when all the generations are still awake, the grandparents, the young kids, the older relatives.
Everyone is fresh and ready to go.
Right. Everyone is participating in that shared historical document. Then, as the night gets later and the older crowd taps out, the lights drop, the volume spikes, and the reception seamlessly transitions into a standard, bass-heavy DJ set for the younger crowd.
The wedding mullet is a brilliant visualization of how couples are refusing to choose between honoring their families and throwing a modern party.
They want both.
They do.
Yeah.
But this raises an important question regarding the broader data from platforms like Weddizer, because they identify interactive entertainment and cultural storytelling as the two massive pillars driving the 2026 wedding industry. So why is this specific generation ditching the standard, familiar wedding format for something this complex?
Well, if you look at the last 10 years, the wedding industry has been overwhelmingly obsessed with passive aesthetics. Couples were pressured to create a performative event like the perfect floral arrangements, the perfect ambient lighting for Instagram photos.
Everything had to look flawless on a grid.
Exactly. But when you focus entirely on how an event looks through a lens, the guests are essentially reduced to background props.
Exactly. What we are seeing is a generational rejection of that passive performance. Young couples want immersive narratives now by utilizing cultural storytelling. Combining the sophisticated, intimate acoustic fiddle during cocktail hour with the wild, unpredictable community energy of a Ceilidh after dinner, they are grounding their new marriage in deep ancestral roots.
It's so much more meaningful.
It is. You are not just hosting a party. You are actively weaving your guests